a mystery no more. And to be clear, that's thanks to good old-fashioned journalism, not to transparency on the state's end. As we all try to guess how long it'll be until the world gets back to normal, an Oregon mom makes it clear. For her, normal left years ago.
Normal went away on June 4th.
A decade after Kyron Horman's disappearance, his parents talk about how they think all that time could actually help them solve one of Oregon's biggest mysteries.
We don't forget, we don't give up.
And with righteous anger boiling over in Minnesota, police departments here in Oregon speak out in the face of injustice.
Does not represent in any way the values or the standards of our profession.
Here's the story.
Hey everybody, quite the night to get to, and as you can tell, welcome to The Story without Dan Haggerty. I'm Maggie Vespa, and I'll be holding down the fort basically through the next week or so. And of course, the relationship that we here at The Story have with you remains the same. We want to hear from you. So hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. You can use the hashtag HeyDan. That hasn't changed either. Or you can email thestory@kgw.com. Our team is monitoring those channels now. We do through every show. So let us know what you think. Send us your questions, your comments. We will answer as many as we can. And with that, let's begin. And we want to start with a story that didn't start as a local story. It actually happened in a different city, in a different state, but now it's soared into the national news cycle and the national conversation. At its core is an issue that hits home in cities across the U.S., and that's the treatment of people of color by police. And today, Oregon law enforcement agencies are weighing in on this story. But before we get to what they said, let's recap, because I'm sure by now your social media feeds have been inundated with this picture of a man named George Floyd and this video of him seemingly being choked to death by a Minneapolis police officer. That officer knelt on Floyd's throat for several minutes on Monday while bystanders begged him to stop. Floyd can be heard saying, "I can't breathe," and gasping for air. Police originally said he died at the hospital, but now a new report from the EMTs who responded said Floyd was unresponsive when they arrived to that scene. Now, since Monday, the 4 officers involved have been fired, and the mayor of Minneapolis has called for the officer who knelt on Floyd's neck to be arrested. That has not happened yet. In the last 24 hours, by the way, you also very well may have seen video like this. This is kind of chapter 2. Riots and destruction after protests against Floyd's death hit a boiling point and led to the burning and looting of several businesses in Minneapolis. And today, after that violent night, predictable kind of social media arguments flared up. People are angry at the police, angry for Floyd's family, and some are angry at the destruction of a city. What's perhaps less predictable, police departments here in Oregon wading into the conversation. Late last night, McMinnville PD tweeted this thread saying, "This is not who we are or what we stand for. We have never trained to do this, nor will it ever be acceptable. We have and will continue to stand with our fellow citizens, condemning these types of actions by those in law enforcement who act in an improper manner." And they went on to say that those actions are not reflective of 99% of officers who protect and serve. Since then, Beaverton Police and the Washington County Sheriff's Office weighed in too with similar messages. And then just a few hours ago, Portland Police weighed in and condemned on video Minneapolis Police for taking swift actions against the officers.
When things like this happen, there's a tendency for all of us in the police profession and in our communities to look at each other as if the community and the police are two different things, and they really aren't. That's the difference in policing in the United States, in a country governed by the rule of law. And that's very important to us, and we recognize, even here all the way across the continent in Portland, the impact that an event like this somewhere else in the country can have on us.
So that was Acting Chief Chris Davis, because right now, actually, Chief Resch is currently furloughed because of COVID-19. So Chief Davis was also asked about the protests and the police response to them. He said it wouldn't be fair to for him to weigh in because, frankly, he wasn't there. He also didn't get into specifics about their anticipated response for local planned protests. Stories of people of color being targeted can no longer, though, be ignored or tiptoed around because they turn deadly way too quickly. I mean, Ahmaud Arbery was out jogging in Georgia when he was shot. And this week in New York, we saw a white woman attempt to terrify a black man by calling 911 and saying he was threatening her life, when really all he was doing was bird watching and asking her to put a leash on her dog. It can't be easy for police departments to criticize their own, so we thank Portland Police and other local departments for saying something, and we, like the rest of the world, will be watching what happens in Minneapolis. All right, guys, so let's get to our big story now. And we touched on this last night, but we learned a lot more about it today. And that's due pretty much entirely to great local journalism. And no, by the way, this is not us giving ourselves a pat on the back. That would be weird. It's us patting the Willamette Week on the back because they were the first to report that Townsend Farms Cannery is the site of one of the single biggest one-day spikes in COVID-19 cases in Multnomah County. And today, 5 hours after they broke that detail, the Oregon Health Authority confirmed that yes, Townsend Farms is indeed the site, which is way better than what they initially said, because yesterday they sounded the alarm about this outbreak, but they said it happened, quote, at specific locations of a business that operates in the Tri-County region and the Willamette Valley. And yes, by the way, we tried to get them to clarify, but they didn't. And at this point, we still don't know why they announced the outbreak, but kind of left those key details cloaked in ambiguity. Nevertheless, it took hard-working reporters to get the truth, and we thank them for it. So here's what we know now, thanks largely to the Willamette Week. A group of about 350 seasonal workers came to Oregon last weekend to pick fruit for Townsend, and they worked at sites in Fairview, in Multnomah County, and in Cornelius, in Washington County. As they arrived, they were tested, and it turns out 48 of them had the virus. Now, the timing of this semi-announcement by the state was big because yesterday, Multnomah County leaders announced their plans to apply for reopening. They want to start doing that on June 12th. County leaders say as that process gets underway, yeah, we need to be prepared for outbreaks like this.
As we increase testing, we will find more cases and we will find outbreaks like this. So I think this underscores the need to be prepared for reopening, to have the testing in place, to have our contact tracing capability online, and to be able to respond quickly to a virus that spreads almost faster than we can keep up with it.
Yeah, definitely. So back to the point about secrecy. OHA did say yesterday they didn't think there was any danger to the surrounding communities. The problem is those communities could have been anywhere based on that initial announcement. And had journalists not kept digging, people would have had to sort of live with that uncertainty. And earlier this month, when OHA released the numbers of COVID-19 cases by zip code, they had this to say. They said, quote, "We are committed to being transparent and accountable to all the communities we serve, especially those hardest hit by the pandemic." So let's just hope that this bout of secrecy is just a bump in the road on the path to complete transparency with the people of Oregon. And by the way, the other big headline tied to reopening, Washington County, you were approved to enter phase 1 today. That decision came down from the governor's office a few hours ago, and phase 1 will start on June 1st, aka this coming Monday. And the timing of that, also interesting, because tonight we were getting ready to address this question on the air here on The Story. You can see Lori wrote in on Facebook asking, is it just me, or is there a news media void around the Washington County application for phase 1? It goes on to say, I haven't seen any status reports. And when I search, I only get the news from 5 days ago that they applied. And Lori, it wasn't just you. The nearly week-long gap between when counties apply to open and when they actually get the approval exists because the state needs to vet the county's assertions that they've met the criteria to reopen. That includes having a sustained drop in cases, enough protective personal protective gear like gloves and masks, and they need to have enough contact tracers. Those are the people who call everyone who's tested positive for the virus, and then they ask them basically who they've been around recently. And then the contact tracer calls those people to warn them that they may need to quarantine or even see a doctor depending on symptoms. The governor told Oregon's biggest counties they had to hire dozens of contact tracers before they could reopen. And it varies based on population, but here are the numbers. Washington County was told they had to hire 90. Clackamas County, 63. And Multnomah County, no surprise, the biggest, they had to hire 122. But counties said they were having trouble hiring and training qualified people quickly. And I asked Washington County's Director of Public Health basically why that is.
It really is just getting the process moving, thinking about getting people phones and computers, getting them trained, getting them connected to our other staff. So it really is a process because it's essentially like bringing on a whole nother health department here in our county.
So the solution? The governor is letting these bigger counties reopen with fewer contact tracers than they were originally told they had to hire. They just have to have a plan in place as to how they would beef up ranks in the event that cases spike. All right, so let's shift gears here. I think it's fair to say that all of us cannot wait until the world gets back to some form of normalcy. But COVID or no COVID, for one family, this time of year never feels normal. In fact, their lives haven't felt normal for nearly 10 years. That's because a week from today marks a decade since Kyron Horman vanished after he was dropped off at Skyline Elementary School. Our own Kyle Aboshi has been reporting on this story since day one. And recently he talked to Kyron's parents about how they hope all this time could actually help them finally find some answers.
At a time when the world is eager to return to normalcy by going back to school or work, the mother of a missing Portland boy admits normal is something she hasn't felt in almost 10 years.
Normal went away on June 4th, and every day we adjust. We try to survive.
Desiree Young's little boy, Kyron Horman, disappeared from Skyline School in Northwest Portland on June 4, 2010. And there's his picture, prompting the largest search effort in Oregon history. But Kyron Horman has never been found.
That night, I never thought in a million years we will be here in 10 years. Never. It's sad and it's disappointing and frustrating.
Kyron's father, Kane Horman, still has photos of the missing 7-year-old like these hanging throughout his home.
You know, we don't forget, we don't give up. We talk about him, we still celebrate birthdays and, you know, do stuff for him at holidays and all that kind of stuff.
Kyron's parents remain hopeful the case will be solved, and the missing boy's mother believes at least one person can provide answers. Terry Horman, Kyron's stepmother, has long been the focus of investigators, although she's never been charged.
And just tell us, no matter how bad it is, just tell us and end this roller coaster that we're on every single day.
A new book titled Boy Missing: The Search for Kyron Horman details the circumstantial evidence surrounding Terry Horman, including claims that several witnesses saw Kyron leave the school with Terry Horman on June 4, 2010.
Literally, one of the adults said they weren't holding hands walking out together, but they left the school together.
Author Rebecca Morris wrote Terry acted suspicious and washed Kyron's dirty laundry and his backpack and jacket the day he disappeared. Previously, Terry has admitted failing lie detector tests, and family members claim, unlike others, Terry had a difficult time piecing together her whereabouts on June 4th. Terry has denied any involvement in Kyron's disappearance. As the allegations turn dark, Desiree Young admits it's changed her perspective.
I always want for Kyron to be able to come home. I know that 10 years later, that's slimmer and slimmer as an option. But I know too that it happens for mothers. It happens. Their kids get to come home. So I still am going to hold on to that. Even though I know the reality of our situation and where we're at today.
The boy's father, Kane Horman, maintains Kyron is still out there, waiting to be found.
I think he was taken from school. I don't think he's been in the area. I think he's out of the area somewhere. I think he's with somebody else. And I still will repeat that we don't have enough information to really tell us, you know, whether he's alive or not. And there's really nothing conclusive in either direction. So we continue to believe that he's out there.
This case started as a search for a little boy. A decade later, Kyron would be approaching his 18th birthday. And sadly, he's still missing.
All right, KGW's Kyle Aboshi joining us now. So Kyle, let's start with those allegations in the book, those new allegations. What are investigators saying about those?
I reached out to Multnomah County Sheriff's Office and asked, and they couldn't confirm anything in the book. Really, all they're saying at this point is it's an active, ongoing investigation.
Okay. We've had so much feedback about these stories, and the majority of it is, people that are who are grateful about Kyron's case being brought back into the spotlight. We did get a few people who are concerned that the case is being sensationalized, or they're wondering why this one missing little boy gets so much attention when there are so many other missing kids in Oregon and nationwide. I mean, you know this case so well. What do you say to those concerns?
I think they're fair concerns. I mean, yes, there is a lot of drama surrounding this case, but at the end of the day, it really is about a missing boy, Kyron Horman, and he is the focus. So we need to remember that through all of this. Secondarily, this case is unusual because of the circumstances. This is a little boy who disappeared from school. I mean, that doesn't happen very often, that a child goes missing from school. Also, a lot of missing kids, they're found. They're either lost, they wander off, maybe they're abducted by a family member during custody battle, but ultimately they're found. This case is highly unusual in the fact that 10 years later, we still have no idea what happened to this little boy.
Yeah, and speaking of, it's been 10 years. I mean, are there concerns about this case going cold?
I asked Kane and Desiree that same question, and they acknowledged the fact that that is a concern. Some of the original investigators, the detectives, the prosecutors in the case, many of them have moved on or they've retired. And so with that, you lose some of the institutional knowledge. Kane says in some ways, though, that may be a benefit. You've got some new eyes looking at this case, but at the same time, you worry that as time passes on, maybe people forget.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you bringing the story back into the spotlight. Kyle Aboshi, thank you. Before Twitter dropped the presidential fact checks heard round the world, they flexed their suspension authority on an Oregon group spreading lies about voting. And it has never been scarier to own a small business. But one act of kindness made all the difference for the Tamale House.
You can't go wrong with tamales, ever.
Hey everybody, welcome back to The Story with me, Maggie. Again, I'll be here for the next week or so filling in for Dan. And even though he's not here, keep sending us your questions with the hashtag HeyDan, or you can email thestory@kgw.com. And speaking of, we got this question from Candy. It says, hey Dan, a few months ago, there was a wave of claims on social media where people were claiming that upon rechecking their party registration, it was realized that many had been changed. It goes on to say, I read several accounts where they were typically changed from Republican to Independent or Democrat. Can you detect whether there is anything indeed going on? That's a great question, and we've heard it from a few people. So these claims have been floating around for a while, and they just basically ramped up during our primary election last week. And that's because Oregon, as we've told you, has closed primaries, meaning you have to register with a political party to be able to vote in partisan races. So Eric Sample from the Multnomah County Elections Office told the Oregonian, quote, we get a lot of such complaints every primary election where party matters, but no one is going in and changing voter registration. Now, for what it's worth, the Oregonian looked at a bunch of public records for these complaints, and they found that most people had never voted in a primary before, and they didn't realize that they had registered with a party. And also, if you're registered to vote through the motor voter law, you don't pick a political party at the DMV. They send you a postcard after so you can pick an affiliation then. These claims make it seem like the state is changing voters' party affiliations, but there is no evidence of that happening. Full stop. And despite this, more than 2,000 people in a Facebook group claim something sinister is going on in Oregon. And actually, there used to be a Twitter account claiming the same thing, but Twitter suspended that account. As of this afternoon, that Facebook group was still up with a lot of false information. All right, so speaking of Twitter and speaking of misinformation, we turn now to the president. And you might have heard for the first time, Twitter added a fact check link to 2 of President Trump's tweets. And in those tweets, the president claimed, as he has often done, that mail-in ballots are fraudulent, and oftentimes can be. There is no evidence to support that either. Again, full stop. So Twitter added a link saying, get the facts about mail-in ballots. If you click on that, it takes you to this page with news organizations and experts saying the president's claims are unsubstantiated. And info about how rare voter fraud is also there, especially with mail-in ballots. As you can guess, the president did not like this very much. So today he signed this executive order on preventing online censorship. Legal experts say this does not change federal law for regulations on tech companies, so it won't really do anything. All right, shifting gears, I don't need to emphasize how tough things are for businesses right now, but when someone steps up to make things even a little bit easier, It really makes all the difference. So our photojournalist Kurt Austin took a trip to Tigard and checked in on the tamale house.
You can't go wrong with tamales, ever.
Yeah. We're out in front of the Tamale House restaurant. We've been here about 10 years. We're family owned. My wife, mother-in-law, the kids, and me, that's it.
A lot of stress.
Some days are very busy, and some days there's nothing at all. Just people just don't come.
My name is Magdalena Jom, and I own the Tamale House. And this is my mom, Josefina. She's the tamale maker queen.
I'm here in support role. I do whatever she tells me.
Oh, yes.
Tony Jump.
I am Karen Morello, and I've just been a customer of the Tamale House for a long time. So I just came for dinner last week and talked to their son and asked them how they're doing with all of the COVID-19 restrictions, and they're not doing well. They're struggling.
It's took 90% of my business.
It's a great cause. Community outreach to help the community and the people that are disadvantaged by COVID-19.
I got to do something. I don't know what to do.
Let's put it this way, it was out of left field. I wasn't expecting anybody to walk in and hand me $1,500 to buy 500 tamales.
I could afford 500 tamales, so I bought 500 tamales and I'm giving them away.
Free tamales!
They're free.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
So there's chicken and beef, yeah?
No, pork.
So want some tamales?
I'm giving 2 tamales away per person. My goal is to get the word out there about the business existing, about the fact that they're struggling, and get more people to come in.
I think for us, it's a blessing that somebody's doing that for us.
I didn't cry until I got home. I held it as long as I could.
It's a mom and a grandma and a dad and 2 kids. Like that, they're the epitome of small businesses and family-owned businesses.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Thanks. A dozen is $30.
Okay. Let's do 2 dozen.
Oh, that's so cool. Wow.
I think it's good, and the more of these businesses we can keep in business, the better. And I don't want to see all of them go away.
I'm going to go grab the other one.
Would you like some tamales?
Yeah.
All right.
Karen kind of encouraged me with what she's doing. So I came and I bought a dozen, and I'm going to give them to my neighbors.
Yeah.
Paying it forward.
It gives you a little faith in humanity that, you know, things can, in even the worst of times, it'll work.
She said that she still see the people having a good heart and people doing good things for other people.
It's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. It's something that I could do. That's it. It's that simple.
You've seen the worst of days, and then some days somebody does something nice for you. It really helps.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You can't go wrong with tamales.
Yeah.
Never.
Can't go wrong with tamales. That's so true. That was the work of photojournalist extraordinaire Kurt Austin. Good luck to them. Hey guys, it's almost time to read some comments. Get them in using the hashtag HeyDan. I know Dan's clearly not here, but it's too confusing to change the hashtag, so we're going to keep it at HeyDan. And you can also always email the story at kgw.com. We want to hear from you, so let's see what we got when we come back. Welcome back, guys, to some great questions tonight. Mauricio asks hashtag HeyDan, how do you apply to be a contact tracer? So it basically depends on which county you live in. Multnomah County has a link for people to apply on their website right now. Some counties aren't doing that because they got overwhelmed and they need fewer, but there is an interest form on the Oregon Health Authority's website, and that is in our story on that topic from last night at kgw.com, so check that out. And then we got a lot of these. Barry said, you must at least hint as to where Dan is. Must I? No, okay, we will. He's on vacation. It's not, it's no big secret or big mystery. He basically wanted to see his family, and we thought he deserved that. The guy's been working really hard. So I'll be here for the rest of this week and next week while he gets some nice time off. That's it for us here on The Story. Thank you so much for joining us and for weighing in. We appreciate it, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.